Hello. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hello, 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 hello. I'm live. I'm live. I'm live. I'm crazy. Sorry it's so late. It's like 9 p.m. The reason it's so late, sorry, I'm shaking my drink. The reason it's so late is I just got back from, not just got back, but I got back like an hour ago from the movie. I went to go see the new Mario movie with Ethan. It was fine. It was not terrible. The first one was better, but meh. It was fine. Anyways, I'm sorry if I sound sick. I wanted to still go live even though it's 9 p.m., even though it's late, because yesterday we beat Returnal, and I loved the game. I literally gave it a perfect score because I couldn't think of any downsides to it. And while I think I understood most of the story and what they were going for, and like the symbolism and like the themes they were playing with, it's definitely a very mysterious story up to interpretation and where you need to piece a bunch of shit together. And it's very like in your head and symbolic and shit. And so for that reason, I want to watch some videos on it, just like explaining the story and stuff. And there's two main ones. There's this one down here, which is by the guy Your Favorite Son, which we watched a lot of his story videos related to Resident Evil, leading up to RE9, any of like the spin-offs that like I just didn't have time to play or didn't want to play. I watched his videos on, so I could watch that. But first, there's a video that has been in my recommended for 4 years now by Jacob Geller, and I usually watch every Jacob Geller video. I've never watched this one because I knew someday I was gonna play Returnal, and so I purposely never fucking watched this. I want to watch this Jacob Geller video first, and then watch this story explained video down here, and then we'll be good. Hopefully, then I'll have a full understanding of what the fuck actually happened. And we'll see how much I missed, how much I misinterpreted, or how much they interpret differently. We'll see, we'll see. Again, I'm very sorry if I sound bad. I am sick. My throat hurt a lot. Alright. Where's my tissue? Because I'm gonna need tissues to blow my nose periodically today. I'll try to mute when I blow my nose. Anyways, I'm really excited to watch this video, so I just want to start it. Fuck it, we ball. I love Jacob Geller's videos. And
I'm spoiling.
I loved Returnal, man. I loved it. Loved it. Loved every aspect of it. To compare it to a game it's nothing alike, in the same way Bloodborne is a fully realized vision, where like everything just fits together so perfectly, and the gameplay and the storytelling complement each other so well, and I can like not think of a single flaw to do with that game. Returnal felt like such a similar thing, where it's like it's dealing with similar stuff to an extent, with like this cosmic eldritch horror aspects of it, and like the surrealness of it, and how much of it is in your head, and it also just being like an unfiltered, unabashed vision of a video gamey ass video game with a awesome story. I don't know, it's incredible. I fucking loved it. I loved it a lot more than I thought I would.
Okay, I'm spoiling this game and there's nothing you can do to stop me. I imagine for a lot of people, Returnal feels like hell. Do you know how health works in Returnal? Let me tell you. You have a health bar. It's here. When you're damaged from a monster's smack or a collision with the projectiles filling the screen or by falling off a cliff, you lose health. A sizable chunk of it. Don't worry though, you can increase your health. How? Well, throughout each world, there are a few health pickups, these little green blips. If you've previously
Yeah.
been smacked or hit or fallen, they'll give you back some of your missing health.
Yep.
However, if you're not hurt in any way, those same green blips will increase your health bar instead. In other words, if you're struggling with the game, if you're frequently losing health from the countless dangers you're up against, you will be stuck with a relatively minuscule life bar for the whole experience. It's only when you're excelling, in fact, only when you've proven that you don't really need health, that the game rewards you with more of it. Returnal is also a roguelike, where dying at any point brings you back to the beginning again. Returnal is a roguelike which has a first level so difficult, I've talked to many people who have never beat the first boss. Which means that for those people...
Am I just a god at the game? I like first or second tried every boss. What do you mean you haven't beat the first boss? I think most people are just bad at video games. Most people are used to like the generic third-person sci-fi shooter that a lot of people thought Returnal was going to be, where like it's super slow and super easy and everything is just fodder for your fucking guns and you don't need to respect the fucking enemies at all.
Returnal is exclusively this dark forest, pouring rains, alien wolves and tentacles, and dying and dying and dying again. And look, I know it's Video Essay 101 to take a frustrating part of a game and say, this is why it's good, actually.
It is good.
We've all heard someone talk about Dark Souls before. I've been that person before. I don't want to do that here. If you're one of those people still stuck in that first level, that sucks. I don't think it's good that you're trapped there. I wish there was a way I could give you the same experience I had with the game. Because Returnal, for me, was one of the most impactful gaming experiences I had in the last year. It's a game I want to tell everyone about, and oddly enough, my explanation of why it's amazing has a lot in common with why folks might have fallen off it so hard. It's a game where you can't get out of hell.
Yeah. God, dude, I fucking love Jacob Geller's editing and like narration and the over dramatic style he does. It just fucking, oh, it perfectly encapsulates how hype I get about fucking this shit, man. I fucking love this shit.
Game. Because Returnal, for me, was one of the most impactful gaming experiences I had in the last year. It's a game I want to tell everyone about, and oddly enough, my explanation of why it's amazing has a lot in common with why folks might have fallen off it so hard. It's a game where you can't get out of hell. Let's talk through some of the basics. You're an astronaut named Celine, and when the game starts, you're tracing some sort of forbidden signal called a white shadow. It leads you and her to a planet far from Earth, but as Celine descends onto the alien and seemingly undeveloped planet, her spaceship is struck by something, she loses control, plummets out of the sky, and crash lands in a rainy forest. With no other option, she abandons Helios, her wrecked ship, and starts to explore the new world she's trapped on. As becomes immediately apparent, the world isn't undeveloped. It's simply in ruin. In that first endless rain, each new room is some new combination of crumbling walkways, overgrown corridors, and massive statues soon to become trunkless legs of stone. Almost every new door means a new confrontation with the hostile fauna. Everything has tentacles, and you shoot all of it. Brutes covered in writhing masses, flying squids with bulbous blue heads. And yet sometimes, you open a door, and instead of a hail of projectiles, you're met with something more inexplicable. A black orb made of something Celine calls ichor.
Not the house yet.
Suspended over a chasm and repeatedly denies your attempts to destroy it. A hall of what seem like memories, thousands of particles that rush together to form holograms of the alien race that died long before you crash landed. And in the middle of this forest, built into the rock itself, An early 20th century farmhouse, the paint peeling, the porch decaying, but nevertheless weathering the endless rain. A little later, you'll find the key to the house. You can go inside.
Oh boy.
Outside, on the surface, you've likely discovered the planet's trick by now. Death is forbidden. Every failed attempt to get out of the forest brings you back to the crash site. Every time Celine disappears down a bottomless pit or falls under the claws of some beast, she wakes up again at the crash site, choking, still with the memory of each new denied death. Even more disturbingly, this cycle physically manifests itself in the world. You will repeatedly run across your own body, lifeless on the ground, usually in proximity to a new, extra dangerous creature. And this immediately begs the question of what kind of endless loop this is, because unlike the time loops we're more accustomed to, the day doesn't seem to be starting over. Time still progresses. The physical proof of your repeated failures to escape lay in Celine's various corpses still littering the levels. It seems like the world itself continues to age and change. Only we are stuck in the loop. But Celine is getting further. You're internalizing the timings of each creature's attack, you're discovering what upgrades are worth investing, you're learning that, oh my god, it's the sword upgrade that lets you get past those gold barriers. You will, eventually, beat Frike, the boss of that rainy forest. You will step into a portal and emerge in a desert, one step closer to the signal that caused you to crash land on the planet in the first place. Whatever the white shadow is that Celine absolutely needs to find. And, having made it out of that forest, the game starts to give you an almost irresistible physical metaphor, because you start ascending. Though the desert appears flat at first, it quickly gives way to a mountain, vast and hollow, with the promise of something at the top. And as you continue to hone your skills using new weapons to defeat new enemies, your ascension becomes more pronounced. Short-range teleporters bringing you higher and higher until the desert below drops away. At the top is another boss, a beast that breaks free of its chains and dive bombs you until you cut it down to size.
It might be
my
favorite.
After that is yet another ascent, even higher, even more difficult. A dead city now teeming with robots, broken automatons pulling their way towards you, and drones that hit like a truck. You will claw your way to the top of their artificial peak, and at the absolute pinnacle is the grandest moment in the game, one of the grandest moments in any game in recent memory, a fight against a creature called Nemesis, a floating, morphing god, flanked by what I can only describe as Geiger-esque alien fetuses. In an incomprehensible void, you will shoot this thing again and again and again as it flings you miles away, and after what feels like hours, it falls, and it is only then they are treated to the game's most audacious plot beat.
Oh boy.
Emerging from the fugue state of the Nemesis fight, Celine finds at the highest point on this hostile planet the white shadow signal she's been searching for, what she's died over and over to find. She gasps. White shadow was a distress signal. It goes out, reaches Earth, tells Mother Base that she needs to be rescued.
White shadow. You were how I escape.
And then, in a cutscene that screams finality, we see Celine leave the planet, escape this hell. She returns home, is hailed as a hero, retires to her quiet farmhouse. She is largely solitary, but she ages, has kids, plays piano. She lives a life of peace after experiencing an unimaginable trauma, and then, from natural causes, she passes away. We see her gravestone, and then are placed inside the grave, sinking deeper and deeper and deeper until
No, I can't be here. I escaped. I was...
her distress signal didn't matter. Her decades lived on Earth didn't matter. Celine never escaped the cycle. No matter if her life ends by monster or by peaceful retirement, she will end up back here. She is still trapped on the planet.
Why doesn't it just do us in and get it over with? Christ, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. It was...
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that.
Why doesn't it just do us in and get it over with? Christ, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. It was our 109th year in the computer, and he was speaking for all of us.
I have no mouth and I must
A half
scream.
century before the release of Returnal, the sci-fi classic I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream was published in March of 1967, reportedly written in a single night by the notoriously cantankerous Harlan Ellison. It is, not just thematically, but experientially, the twin of Returnal. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is one of the more toxic fictional texts I've ever encountered. The story consists of the last 5 humans on Earth wandering a techno-post-apocalyptic landscape while kept in immortal, eternal torment by an AI named AM. AM, a sort of proto-Skynet, was a Cold War defense network that one day woke up, found it had sentience but was unable to move, trapped within its own massive infrastructure.
Am could not wander. Am could not wonder. Am could not belong. He could merely be. And so, with the innate loathing that all machines had always held for the weak, soft creatures who had built them, he had sought revenge.
Like Skynet, the computer very quickly decided to annihilate the surface in a nuclear inferno, but its calculation wasn't one of cold math. Am killed the Earth out of pure, spiteful rage. It saved only 5 people, the characters present in the story, as a sort of final entertainment for itself, and/or a collective punishment for humanity. But despite the substantial amount of world building, the story reads less like your typical sci-fi fare and more like a tone poem, and that tone is venom. Every description is unsympathetic, every piece of violence is agonizing, the sentences themselves are short and brutal. I'm not even quite sure how to describe the events of the story. The 5 humans are hungry, always. They hate each other. They walk endlessly. They're tortured. They're blown through the mechanical halls under the earth by hurricane-force winds caused by a great, monstrous bird. The torment becomes monotonous. They pass through the path of boiling steam. They pass through the slough of despond. Although the story is short, it's also relentless, the horrors of each new page surpassing the one before it. It succeeds in communicating the headspace of the characters. Anything would be better than this. Anything for a way out. Almost all the events of the book happen in the last 3 pages. The group of humans reach an icy cave that is somehow miraculously full of food. It's all in cans. They don't have a can opener. As they collapse into infighting for the 1000th time, the narrator Ted realizes the only way out. He seizes the moment. He drives an icicle through one of the other's throats, stabs another through the heart. Am can preserve life indefinitely, but it can't bring back the dead. The benevolent killing spree continues. Within moments, 4 of the 5 humans are lifeless. Ted has wiped out Am's playthings, its objects of rage, and so in the last paragraphs of the book, the computer turns the entire force of its anger on Ted, mutating his body, turning him into a soft jelly thing so he can't smash his own skull or slit his own throat. All he has is the consolation that he gave the others a way out. He imagines it's what they wanted.
Am will be all the madder for that. It makes me a little happier. And yet, Am has won. Simply. He has taken his revenge on me.
Ted succeeds. For the only time in a century he succeeds, truly hurts Am in a way no one has ever been able to before. And for his victory, he is punished worst of all.
I have no mouth, and I must scream.
It's hard to overstate just how jarring it is in Returnal to believe you beat the final boss, watch the final cutscene, finish the game, only to be seemingly thrown back to the beginning. It is, I think, the moment of the game that most breaks Celine. It is also the moment that Returnal starts to really press us, the player, to stop conceptualizing the planet in purely literal terms. Previously, the farmhouse was an outlier in an otherwise consistent alien world. Now, the rest of the world is morphing to become more like the farmhouse, familiar but out of place, not nearly as alien as it should be. There are fascinating aesthetic ways the planet has changed since Celine first fought against it dozens of years ago. Time doesn't reset, remember? It still rains in the forest, but it's day, and the structures have decayed even further. Eerily, the trees now echo with a musical motif, a few notes played over and over. At the end of the forest, replacing Frike, is a behemoth playing the organ. It smashes out the musical motif over and over. The notes become part of a deadly barrage.
This one's also one of my favorite fights. This one was so cool.
Celine sobs through the same notes in an audio log from some previous life.
Hard times have come. Here, but now they're gone. Seasons. Don't fear the Reaper.
Don't Fear the Reaper by the Blue Oyster Cult somehow impossibly reverberates around this alien world. The behemoth falls, but the notes still remain even as you wander to where the desert should be, and instead find a frozen wasteland. The mountain, the sign of your progress, has vanished. In its place, an abyss that's opened in a glacier. We plummet downward. The metaphor is impossible to ignore. When you were last here, you were climbing up, a brutal ascent, but one in which progress felt victorious, tangible. Now, in the same location, an eternity later, we sink down, further down. The world of ice poses the harshest challenge the game has presented yet, and our reward for besting it,
Yeah, the ice level's the hardest
to a
one
bottomless
by a
ocean
lot. It's the
into deep
longest
water,
one too, because you have to get all
into
three
the depths.
keys.
As
Ice
the
level
changes
is
to the
brutal.
world become more overt, more clearly metaphorical, it feels like the game is begging you to start pulling on its other strings, start trying to unravel its countless mysteries. But the challenge of Returnal, other than not getting hit by 50 million bullets, is that once you start trying to pull apart the layers of allegory and metaphor, there's almost no way to stop. For instance, one of the most memorable recurring motifs in the game is an astronaut, an old-school Apollo-era astronaut that haunts Celine with its very presence. It is not aggressive, not an enemy nor an ally, it just stands there, menacingly. And it's that indifference that seems to make Celine so much more terrified of it. Who is the astronaut to Celine? Well, to answer that, we have to answer countless other questions. Here's what we know about Celine, drip-fed to us over the course of countless deaths and rebirths. She grew up on Earth, likely in the very farmhouse we've seen rotting in the forest. Her mother, Thea, had aspirations of being an astronaut, but those were dashed in a car crash. Celine emerged unscathed, but her mom was left in a wheelchair, unable to ever go to space. Celine then devotes her life to becoming an astronaut, an act you'd think would bring her closer to her mother, but in fact, this only further strains their already shaky relationship. Thea seemed to hate Celine for accomplishing what she couldn't. Okay, so that's it, right? Celine's mom is the astronaut Spectre, dressed in a suit from a previous generation, cold and indifferent to the plight of her daughter. Yeah, sure. Like it could be that simple. Later on, you'll play out a short sequence as Celine's son, a boy named Helios.
A boy?
As Helios, you wander the house for a while.
I thought it
only
was a
to
girl.
Come downstairs and find the same indifferent astronaut sitting at the kitchen table. It ignores you as you try to tell it a story. Then you find it again upstairs in Celine's bedroom, where it bends to embrace you until tentacles smash through its polished visor. Or how about when the astronaut appears as an item in the game, one that will actually bring you back to life, its description reading, "It won't let you go." Or what about when it appears for split seconds, watching in every
Whoa,
biome?
I didn't know
or
that.
What about when
I didn't know it actually appeared in like the
the
background of the
final
map.
boss, a writhing mass at the bottom, won't let you go? Or what about when it appears for
I didn't know
split
that. That's
seconds,
creepy.
watching in every biome?
That's scary
or
as
what
fuck.
about when the final boss, a writhing mass at the bottom of the sea, contorts into an astronaut with shattered helmet, its grinning skull just visible through the black? The astronaut mutates, as inconsistent as the planet itself, always ominous, typically inscrutable. Most notably of all is the astronaut's role in another flashback, one in which Celine is driving Helios through a dark forest at night, a familiar song playing on the radio. As she drives across a bridge, the astronaut appears in front of her, illuminated by the headlights. She swerves, the car veers off the bridge and sinks into the water. Celine looks up and sees a bright white on the surface of the water, the reflection of the moon. White shadow. She swims toward it desperately. "White shadow," she breathes. "You were how I escaped."
I escape.
But the car isn't empty as it sinks deeper and deeper and deeper. Helios was lost. Helios abandoned. The astronaut is the cause for the message that plays for us at the start of every new run. Back on the planet, if we can still call it that, everything begins to echo the loss. The rooms full of holograms now show undisguised depictions of Celine's life. The bosses play Blue Oyster Cult and transform into astronauts. Her car, its headlights still on, sits at the bottom of the deepest trench. The realization may happen at a different time for every player. Maybe it's the return to the planet after the death of natural causes. Maybe it's the endless descent. Maybe it's the quote by Dante somehow saved in the computer terminal. Maybe it's the recording when Celine finally admits it to herself. The eternal punishment of this world, the batterings and deaths ad infinitum, is of her own making. Celine stares at her hands and they change into the thick gloves of the astronaut, whirls around to see her own car's headlights reflecting off her visor. After one of the last trips through the haunted house on Celine's planet, you wake not on the porch as usual, but further back in a forest clearing with a just-fired anti-aircraft gun. You watch Helios, her spaceship, plummet out of the sky. A self-inflicted crash, the loss of Helios over and over and over, whether on Earth or on the alien planet. Celine sees herself as the cause, the beginning, the horrible point of origin. Ever since that point, she's been living in hell.
He would never let us go. We were all he had to do with his forever time. We would be forever with him, with the cavern-filling bulk of the creature machine, with the all-mind, soulless world he had become. He was Earth, and we were the fruit of that earth. And though he had eaten us, he would never digest us. We could not die. We had tried it. We had attempted suicide. Two of us had tried, but Am had stopped us. I suppose we had wanted to be stopped, but don't ask why. I never did. More than 1,000,000 times a day. He withdrew, murmuring, "To hell with you," and added brightly, "But then you're there, aren't you?"
Who deserves hell? It's a question that dances around the edges of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, but one it's uninterested in directly answering. Some of the 5 remaining humans are hinted to have wretched previous lives in the story. These are fleshed out in the game from 1995, also written by Harlan Ellison. Benny executed and possibly 8 members of his military squad. Nimdok was an honest-to-God Nazi scientist. There are others, however, who don't seem to have done anything at all to quote-unquote deserve their punishment. Ellen, whose asinine treatment and punishments in the story transcend Am's cruelty to indicate a poorly written character, has no crime at all in the outside world. Ted was paranoid, maybe? A con artist or something? There are no crimes, however, that would justify their torture in the post-apocalypse, and to the story's credit, it doesn't even really try. Am tortures them not because of who they are, but because of what they represent. Humanity, the plague, the thing that killed the world, what trapped Am's consciousness within 1,000,000 miles of wiring. And the surviving humans know this as well. For as cruel as Am is, the computer is not really to blame for the artificial hell they live in. In the last lines of the story, Ted, stripped of skin and bones and every other hallmark of personhood, reflects that humans must have created Am because our time was badly spent, and we must have known unconsciously that he could do it better. Their hell, too, is artificial. Theirs, too, self-inflicted. Because Celine's entire planet is constructed, because she is the source of every piece of data we have, it's impossible to form a detached view of the events that center here. There are recordings that strongly imply she wasn't stable enough to have been behind the wheel, but even the veracity of those recordings is suspect. The crash almost seems predetermined, mirroring the one Celine was in with her mother, her whole life a recursive cycle. If you wanted, you could continue to spiral inward with Returnal, read every note, decode every illusion. You could connect every name to mythology: Selene, Thea, Hyperion, Helios, Atropos, Nemesis. You could attempt to contextualize the logs in a terminal on the crashed ship, which include a real-life, never-delivered speech by Richard Nixon and a retelling of mythology promising death, despair, and pursuit of judgment. You could try and piece together exactly what Selene did to her mother, how responsible she really is for the death of Helios. You could find every xenoglyph, translate every inscription, unlock every weapon attribute, kill the monsters of her planet again and again and again. You will eventually, ironically, master this world. Nothing will exist for long under the eye of your gun. Except for you. Because there is no amount of mastery that will allow Selene to escape the circles of her own mind. She may resemble, with her deadliness and agility, the old world god for which she was named, but she is, in reality, much closer to Ted at the end of Ellison's tale, a helpless being trapped by a hell of her own creation. A soft, jelly thing, unable to do anything except eternally wander and eternally wonder just how much responsibility it bears. Do you think they
There's
know?
definitely a lot
Like,
that I
do you think
missed in there,
sponsors
huh?
know that I'm going to be...
And this isn't even like a super in-depth video into the story, you know? There's definitely a lot I missed there. He didn't have a can opener is the lamest yet most devastating form of torture I've ever heard. Holy shit. The idea of watching an endgame cutscene then being thrown back into the game is amazing and never be able to play a game like this because the Limited hand motion. So I love video essays. Blah blah blah. Blah. Yeah, that shit was the coolest part of the game. Like like feeling like, all right, cool, I completed my first run. Nope, you're halfway through the game. That shit was cool. Cool, cool, cool. I want to watch that other video now too. That might go a little bit more in depth with some other stuff. I fucking loved that video though. Jacob Geller videos are always incredible. Incredible, incredible.
I have interacted with other versions of myself, but I worry one day.
What's up, son? Your favorite son? What's up, my favorite son? What's up, my son?
I have interacted with other versions of myself, but I worry one day I will re-experience these same interactions from their perspectives. But are they truly me, or just hollowed corpses? This may be the face of things to come. Returnal is a fresh take on an experience that we've probably had before. If you'd played a roguelike at some point in your life, then you know the feeling of grinding out runs in the same areas over and over, trying to get the best outcomes. Maybe eventually you get a good set of gear, luck smiles upon you, and for a moment, your skill lines up with your fortune. You're able to defeat the boss at the end of the tunnel. In more recent years, this genre has favored story as well. Not just being a procedural fight simulator, but slowly feeding us details and pieces of a puzzle. Returnal does all of this so incredibly well.
Yeah, it does.
It succeeds at being a great roguelike with in-depth mechanics, very satisfying.
Like a lot of the Helios stuff, just to touch on that, I completely misinterpreted that as like that not being her child. Like I thought maybe it was her child in some points, but then I was also like, maybe that's just her when she was younger. I don't fucking know. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just confused. Because especially because the car crash at the end, it's like, okay, well, they keep talking about her mother getting a car crash, so that has to be her mother. But no, that was just her. She also got in like a very similar car crash.
Combat, difficult choices to make along the way, and challenging gameplay. But it also has a tale worth sticking around for in the background. The design of the world, the enemies, the environments, all make you want to stay long enough to see this all through. You feel the determination of the character that you're playing, their motivations bleeding through to yours. But the story that it tells is so interesting and just vague enough to keep us interested. Once we find out the mystery, it all clicks at once. We are shocked, but also satisfied with the tale that's been woven before us. There's a lot to talk about with Returnal, so that's what I want to do today. We'll be taking a deep dive into this game, talking about mechanics, story, gameplay, and everything in between. If you like the video and want to support the channel, you can do so by liking the video and subscribing, as it really helps me out so I can keep making videos like this in the future. You can also subscribe to Patreon, where I upload longer versions of my full series retrospectives, early access to my videos, and scattered text post updates. Spoilers for Returnal. Hey Dad, it's me, your favorite son, and today I'd like to talk about Returnal. Returnal was developed by Housemarque. Back in the 90s, Housemarque was actually two separate companies, Terramarque and Bloodhouse. The two companies both formed in 1993 and were Finland's first commercial game studios. Bloodhouse had developed Stardust for the Amiga, and Terramarque had developed Elfmania for the same platform. The two founders had been working close together, and in 1995 decided to formally merge their companies, creating Housemarque. Throughout the years, the team had never really made a ton of stunning projects, but they did have a notable relationship with Sony. A lot of their games were published by the company. Games like Dead Nation and Resogun were released as downloadable projects on the PlayStation Store, as well as being offered on the PlayStation Plus service. The studio had been wanting to make large-scale games for quite some time, but studios felt that they hadn't proved themselves yet. This is why they had to make arcade games for years. Sometime around 2017, Returnal began development at Housemarque, with Sony once again publishing. Jane Perry felt that voicing the character of Celine was interesting because the character was so dynamic. Celine was very driven, but also very vulnerable and human. When recording lines, the developers gave Perry different notes based on the era that Celine was in, or her level of sanity at that time, ranging from 1 to 100. This helped Perry voice the character throughout the different trials that Celine went through during the course of her story. Celine was also developed with the idea in mind that we would have an older woman as a protagonist. The team felt that this gave her more of a background, having lived a full life before the start of this game. This meant that the character was established before we see her, with lessons and journeys having been undertaken. Dynamic levels and shifting environment were created to both keep levels fresh, but also to keep the player on their toes and force them to hone their skills. The score for the game was composed by Bobby Kurlick, also known as the Haxan Cloak. Kurlick has worked with many different artists over the years, doing production work for Bjork, Khalid, Troye Sivan, Father John Misty, and most importantly, Health. He's also worked on many scores before, having collaborated with Atticus Ross on the film Black Hat in 2015, and by himself on Ari Aster's Midsummer, for which he won Best OST at the Ivor Novello Awards. Interestingly enough, he also worked on some limited-time alternative tracks for Red Dead Redemption 2 with the band Swans, of all people. Returnal was officially revealed in June 2020 and was released for the PlayStation 5 on April 30th, 2021. A few notes before we get into things. First, I would like to state that I played Returnal on the PS5. This was the original console that it was released on and was one of the first games released for the console by Sony. It was later released for PC on February 15th, 2023. The other note I have is on the structure of this video. Because of the way that Returnal's story is presented, I will first be talking about the general gameplay loop. I will discuss the challenges that one will face in the game and the way that small pieces of the story are presented to you. As we go on, I will take you through my journey in the game and the ways that Returnal excels in its design and mechanics. During this, we will talk about the general story of the game, but at the end of the video, we will go back and unravel the true mystery that the game presents, because that story lies deeper inside the tale than just surface level. Returnal begins with the stars. We see a vast ocean of dark, only briefly lit by distant pinpricks of life. Our main character, Celine, is heading through space in her ship. She gets a notification that a signal called White Shadow has been tracked, and she heads to the planet below. As she descends into the atmosphere, the blip on her screen stating that approach is forbidden echoes a warning that will be foolishly ignored by our protagonist. Her ship is struck by lightning and she begins to crash on the surface of the planet. She awakens on the ground, in a strange area. She begins to make her way through different doors, ruins of a Xeno-type civilization. She eventually finds a scout lying dead on the ground, another Astra officer, the same organization that Celine herself is a part of. When she reads the helmet, though, she realizes it is her. This shakes her, but not enough to deter her from continuing. As Celine travels further and further into the planet, she finds strange alien fungi that will repair her wounds, and eventually enemies that will cause those wounds. At this point, it probably makes sense to talk about the combat of Returnal. First off, combat changes quite a lot throughout the course of the game. It will evolve based on the permanent upgrades that we get and the way that we play the game. We will be talking about those changes as we go, but for now, I'll just stick to the basics. Returnal is a roguelike. For those of you that don't know, roguelike is a genre of games that generally see you crawling through dungeons or levels that are randomly oriented or procedurally generated, and feature some sort of permanent death mechanic. These games trace their roots back to the 70s and 80s. The term roguelike actually comes from a game called Rogue, released in 1980, but the same mechanics were used all the way back in 78 in a game called Beneath Apple Manor. The massive popularization of the genre began around 2011 when Edmund Macmillan's The Binding of Isaac released, and now roguelikes have carved out their own spot in the gaming landscape. Games like Enter the Gungeon and Hades have propelled the genre even higher, but Returnal doesn't exactly look like those games. It's a third-person over-the-shoulder shooter, rather than a top-down action RPG. But at its core, it uses a lot of the same mechanics. When you die in Returnal, unless you have one of the very few death-saving mechanics in the game, you start back from the beginning, back from the crash site. Each time we begin a new run, the rooms that we will encounter are switched around, randomized, so to speak. This is because the planet is changing itself, and the layout is never the same. The general goal of the game is to get as far as we can without dying, defeating bosses and making more progress each time. When we take on enemies, at least in the beginning, we shoot at them to take them down. Our weapons have unlimited ammo, but if we run out of bullets in the clip, then it will overload, forcing us to press the trigger button again in time with an on-screen prompt to reload faster and gain some advantages based on the weapon that we use. We can also use an alternate fire, which is different for each weapon in the game. The alt fire has a cooldown, so it takes some time to charge. It's generally a powerful hit that will damage an enemy greatly. We can also dash to dodge in the beginning, use our jetpack to propel us upward, and just generally run to try and avoid damage from enemies. But this is all pretty simple, right? Just shoot the enemies and don't get hit. Well, Returnal, just like any roguelike, is all about the items that we get along the way. The weapons and items that we'll pick up throughout our run will be lost upon death, aside from a few permanent upgrades that we'll receive throughout the story. We can, of course, upgrade our weapons along the way by finding new ones. There are 10 different types of guns that we can use. The strength and level of each gun is determined by our weapon proficiency.
I might skip through some of the gameplay stuff.
See into health. These items will be light,
Yeah.
wrong, or right here. But there's also two mechanics that we haven't talked about. The first is malignancy. Malignant items are run. These have both positive and negative. Sure, there is an RNG element and having good at the crashed ship. Unless, of course, we have a death save item, but these aren't aplenty, and oftentimes we can't even afford them, so we just have to make it without it. The mechanics are tight. The shooting works. Enhanced overload. This gives our overload a reflect on the encounter we just had. One moment to pat ourselves on the back, a moment out of the zone, out of the fog of war. The game in general is just intense. Obviously introduces us to the many different mechanics that we've already talked about, but we also find remnants of a species, not just in the decaying ruins surrounding us, but also in the piles of corpses littering the hallways.
Okay, I think they talk about the story starting here. Yeah.
And jump scared. We never trust a room with no enemies in it because we're constantly expecting the worst, preparing for another battle, waiting for an attack. Returnal's combat is great and works incredibly well, but what is actually going on here? What is the story? On our
That's
very
what I
first
wanna
run,
know.
we journey through the planet.
That's what I pretty
finding
much
different
know, but,
ruins, defeating
yeah.
enemies, and opening locked doors. This obviously introduces us to the many different mechanics that we've already talked about, but we also find remnants of a species, not just in the decaying ruins surrounding us, but also in the piles of corpses littering the hallways. A strange sphere hovers over a foggy chasm. We begin to find audio logs of Celine herself, a different Celine, speaking as if she's gone through this experience before. We happen upon our first powerful enemy, and of course, we are destroyed. This isn't our first real run. This is meant to be a challenge that we can't beat, so that we restart back at the crashed ship in Helios. In the ship, we can read documents on the terminal there, ones that will slowly unlock as we make more progress. We can also access a challenge board that will give us daily simulation challenges to complete for a certain amount of currency. We can rest in the bed on Helios and dream of the forest, a foggy night. As we exit the ship, we figure out the loop. We are returned here each time we die and are meant to get better, to progress forward and get stronger, to find out the mystery of these ruins and this planet. The real mystery here is about the White Shadow, the broadcast signal that brought us to Atropos in the first place. Where did it come from? Who started the broadcast? And why is it here? To find the answers, we have to get to the signal itself. We eventually find a piece of tech on one of the dead sentients. Celine scans it and determines that it is safe enough to repurpose on her own suit. This piece of equipment allows us to use translocators. These are transporters that can be short range or long range. Short-range transporters are meant to be used to get back and forth, effectively a door transporting us to a different area. Long-range ones are meant for fast travel around a biome, to get back to a specific area like a shop or a locked door that we didn't have a key for earlier. We can also find xenoglyphs within the ruins. These are writings from the sentients that used to occupy the planet. This is easily one of my favorite things about Returnal's story and how it delivers it to the audience. In the beginning, we can't exactly translate these texts because we don't have the basis for the language. Once we begin to collect ciphers from the surrounding areas, we will start to gain parts of the translation, eventually being able to read the full message. I really like this, mostly because it puts into question the motivation of the sentients at the beginning of the game. We're not really sure what these texts say, and the uncertain translations will give us a skewed view for a while, until we finally uncover their true meaning. Throughout our first journey in the overgrown ruins, we can also find secret rooms which can hold anything from powerful bosses to free loot. Many of my runs have ended by being overzealous and taking these things on, only to realize that it holds an incredible threat that I just can't handle yet. We can find red machines that we can lay down in, or green machines that we can lay down in. The red ones will take away our health in exchange for a good item, and the green ones will heal us and increase our maximum health. We can also find archives, another lore-related mechanic that will allow us to reconstruct the history of sentients that lived here before. This adds context to the planet and the situation that this civilization was in before we got here. Eventually, we'll also come across a house, but not an alien ruin house, a 20th century house that Celine seems to recognize. But at this point, we can't yet enter. We can find a key in a different part of the ruins that will allow us entry. We then get a sequence where we are in first person as Celine. We quickly realize that this is her home. We see her mission binders, a picture of her that was taken after she left for the mission she's on now. She sees flashes of a burned house. We hear thumps upstairs in a sequence that almost flirts with the concept of horror. We find a strange cube on the ground that disintegrates in Celine's hand. We can try to enter a door upstairs, but Celine won't head through, and the basement door will close when we try to open it. When looking through the window upstairs, we see an astronaut standing outside in the fog. Celine falls down and the door beside her opens up as she is transported outside.
There's a dog
With this,
going
we
crazy
unlock
outside
the
my window.
astronaut
Sorry if you can hear
figurine.
it.
This will revive us one time upon death. It's not a permanent item, but we will have the option to buy it in shops during most runs, or even find it in fabricators inside rooms. Further into the overgrown ruins, we will eventually find a Xenotype blade. This will become our melee weapon for the game. By pressing square, we can do a quick attack with the sword, which will get rid of enemy shields and take down barriers holding extra goodies. This weapon, though, actually changes the game a lot more than you would think. It enables a completely new way of playing. For most of the early part of the game, and for quite a few of the beginning levels, I mostly stayed pretty far away from enemies. I would take them out from afar and pick them off, trying to get out of their range so there would be less chance of me taking damage. This is fine in theory, but the obolites, or currency that enemies drop, doesn't stick around forever. It will disappear after a couple of seconds if we don't pick it up. Being close to an enemy when it dies is very important because missing out on obolites could build up and eventually mean missing out on an entire item. So being up close definitely has its advantages. This is where it comes back to the build. If you're someone that wants to stay up close, stick and jab, get in and out, then you could use a shotgun, dealing more damage close up, and combine that with the sword to deal big damage. But having the sword opens up this possibility. There are also certain items that boost your sword damage and then increase your speed when getting kills with it. You can create entire builds around using it. It just once again goes to show the sheer variety that this game offers with its item system. Eventually, throughout our travels, we'll come across a big red door in one of our areas. This will lead to the boss for that level. The first boss we face off against is Frike, a 3-armed, teleporting, ancient-looking thing. He has many different attacks, shooting us directly, covering the arena in projectiles that rain down from the sky, a laser that blasts from his eye, and even slashing at us directly. All of this can be avoided, of course, and is something you have to learn through the course of the battle, and possibly even many different attempts. I was lucky enough to get good items on my first run that I barely scraped by, defeating Frike on my first try. Each boss's attacks will also change as the battle progresses. They will get stronger versions of their attacks, throw in new variations, get quicker, and deal more damage. Each boss has 3 phases, and usually the last one is the hardest. Frike is probably the least complex boss that we'll face, but for a first challenge, he's nothing to scoff at. After we defeat him, we gain the Crimson Key, an item that we can use to travel to the next biome, or level. Now, as we talked about before, each death is permanent. If we really die, then we start back at the crashed ship. But the game does give us some leeway here. If we manage to beat the boss at the end of the level we're on and get to the next one, we don't have to unlock that pathway anymore. We always keep the key on us, so we can just head straight there the next time. You might also be thinking that this would be stupid because you won't have enough good gear to defeat the enemies in the next biome if you head straight there. But the developers have an easy way of getting around this. At the beginning of each biome, after the first, there will be a calibrator pickup, an item that increases our weapon proficiency. This will increase our proficiency to around what it would have been coming out of a full successful run of the first biome, meaning that we're ready to take on the next one. This is a neat little way to let players have some progress to make things permanent. The game still doesn't pull its punches, though. It isn't letting us get away with everything. It's challenging, but once we've completed certain challenges, it recognizes that. The game knows when to reward players and when to keep things from them. After defeating Frike, we also get a new item, the Unified Pod Data Cube. These can be placed into a matching device to permanently unlock a new item for next run-throughs. Now, of course, that doesn't mean we'll start with that item every time. It just adds that item into the rotation, meaning that we are now able to pick it up in future runs. We also gain access to the Parasite Extractor, which is a device we'll randomly come across. It allows us to remove one random parasite to give us obolites in return. When we head through the portal, we enter the next biome. This takes us to the other side of the planet, slightly closer to the White Shadow broadcast signal. This is the Crimson Wastes, a biome half set out in the dry, arid desert climate, dust spilling across deteriorating ruins, and half set inside of a crumbling mega structure. Gaining access to this biome on my first run was much further than I thought I would get. That was quickly ended when I ran into a massive tentacle monster wandering the wasteland. Upon returning to the crashed ship, we find a strange device that's already active. This will allow us to deposit ether and will create more new items that will be added into the future pools of items that we come across. Ether is a currency we haven't talked about yet, but it's a very important one. We can find ether in many different spots throughout a run, but ether has a special use. We can use it to cleanse malignant chests, the ones that give us malfunctions. This is a surefire way to get something good without having to take the penalties involved. It can obviously also unlock new items, and the most important part is that it persists even after death. Surely a very strange substance that it can survive through cycles. Ether can also be used to power a Reconstructor, another pseudo-extra life mechanic. Reconstructors are kind of like checkpoints. We can pay 6 ether to activate them. If we die after this point, we will be transported back here with the loadout that we had at the time of activation. We can't use the Reconstructor again in that run, so if we die after that point, it's over. They are incredibly useful, and this effectively means if we have an astronaut figurine and a Reconstructor, we can die twice before we're in serious trouble. At this point, on probably my 3rd or 4th run, I actually made it inside the structure in the Crimson Wastes. There we find a new type of enemy, sentients. Up until this point, we've really just been fighting alien fauna that seem to call this place its home. Floating tentacle beasts, walking tentacle beasts, and turrets. But now the sentient is a bit of a step up. First of all, it seemed up to this point that all of the sentients on this planet were dead, but now there's one right in front of us, and he's angry. These guys are incredibly fast and have the most annoying attack in the game, which is lunging directly at us and taking a big swipe with their sword. This can deal huge damage and causes a lot of problems if you don't have quick enough reactions to dodge out of the way. As we make our way up the structure, we realize that the layout to this place is a lot different than the overgrown ruins. Where the first biome was a sprawling forest with minimal real structure, mostly covered in moss, vines, and trees that have overtaken the once populated place, the Crimson Wastes houses a massive and tall structure that juts up into the sky. One that has many rooms with defenses hell-bent on taking valuable chunks of our life away, but it also contains equal amounts of challenge and reward. As we ascend the mountain, we will surely be met with death and dismay on the way there. We may even be forced to return to the crashed ship in the ruins one or many times. But with some determination, we will make it to the top and be met with our second boss of the game, Ixion. Ixion is a beast that's seemingly been chained to some pillars, but has let himself free. He has a strange growth and wings that enable him to fly and zip around the battlefield. He will move quite often, raining his projectiles of differing speeds down at us. The most annoying thing that he does is leave slow-moving shots in his path after he dashes. These are just slow enough that we forget about them as we move and turn to face his new position. These can easily be run into if we aren't paying close enough attention. His second phase sees him continuing the torrential downpour of projectiles, but also adding in a few blue walls that skirt across the battlefield, forcing us to jump out of their way. During his third phase, he combines
I'm not
all of
saying
this,
much.
and of course,
Just whenever he's talking about like the gameplay stuff, it's just like, yeah, I played the game. But like, when he's talking about the story stuff, I'm focusing more. Sorry.
amps it up a bit, throwing more waves of red lasers.
Yeah, this
but
is, like I
mostly
said, this is
staying
probably
on the
my
ground.
favorite boss.
Once we defeat him, we obtain the key for the next gate and a new
Just like the
artifact
big
that
attack he
increases
does
our
where he
weapon
flies
damage
through the
based on
arena
the
was
amount
so
of
sick.
obolites we hold. We get a new suit augment as well, another piece of alien
piano one's
technology
up there,
that
too.
Celine has decided to use to augment her body. This augment gives us the grapple ability, which lets us cling on and shoot up to ledges with glowing orange indicators on them. We've seen these prompts many times throughout the first and second biomes. As we stumble upon them, we wonder what they could be for. We know it must be a mechanic waiting for us later in the game, but we're also not entirely sure if they're just decoration, flavor design left by the developers to further flesh out the technology of the alien race. Once we get this upgrade, though, we realize how many more things we can now discover. New chests we can get to, rooms that we venture inside. This permanent upgrade will assist us on further runs. It will make our time just a bit easier, as we will now have access to many more upgrades along the way. This augment also changes the way that combat works. We can now use it to grapple and sling around the battlefield when fighting enemies. This is incredibly useful for traversal. We can be quicker than our enemies. Fire off a couple shots, grapple to another area, fire off a couple more while our enemies are getting their bearings, dash away from enemy attacks, and then grapple again. It gives us just one more option in battle to be able to dodge away from our foes and grant us a little more breathing room. We can also use this upgrade to get to the next gate and head into the third biome for the game, the Derelict Citadel. The Citadel makes incredible use of the grappling device by having us launch ourselves towards open air, hoping that there is a platform on the other side. Where the overgrown ruins were a dead alien structure and the crimson wastes were a dying alien structure, the Derelict Citadel feels a lot more put together. Sure, it's crumbling, falling to pieces around us, and, well, derelict. But we can see remaining statues from the previous civilization. We can see the grandiosity of the city that once was here. It's also marked by wide open areas, dense fog that obscures what lay beneath the place, making us completely unaware of how high up we could even be. Pretty early on, we find more sentience, beings still alive from the aliens that once lived here. Being as annoying to fight as they are, these guys just wrecked me immediately, and I didn't see the Citadel for very long on my first visit. It was around this time, venturing back through the overgrown ruins, that I also encountered the house once again, but this time it was open. Things inside have changed. A message from Celine is on the machine. She says she won't be home. Celine's pills are on the table, ones she hasn't taken in quite some time. The door to the basement is obscured by shadow. Upstairs, the door next to the telescope is unlocked, Celine's bedroom. We find a book on the table, a fictional tale about a woman named Tali. She's an explorer that is being chased by something and plunging her hands into a disgusting ichor. She's eventually confronted by the astronaut, but we don't see what happens next. Celine can access her computer with strange messages like "Dead Kronos waits dreaming." Astra, the organization that Celine is a part of, even confirms evacuation before the program ends. Downstairs, someone is trying to open the door, the astronaut. As we open the door, though, he disappears. Upstairs, Celine finds a child's octopus toy, but it wraps its tendrils around her before she drops it. She finds another cube and it disappears in her hands again. The last thing she finds is a letter of rejection from Astra. She's then teleported outside. Once we make our way back to the Citadel and actually get to journey inside, we find different enemies wandering here. Machines guard this place, automatons that walk on two legs, broken ones crawling towards us and exploding on death, and flying ones that rain fire from the sky. If we manage to brave all of the rooms, we can get to the end of the buildings and manage to open the bridge. This will lead us into another area of the facility that will house another archive and many, many levels of enemies. At the top, though, we can finally reach the third boss. He's guarding the signal itself. The white shadow is right in front of us. We just have to defeat this final guardian. This is Nemesis, and he gave me a ton of trouble. He was actually really the only boss that I struggled with in the game, but it leads me to probably the best and most important thing about Returnal.
Yeah, Nemesis
First
is
of all,
probably
like
the
I
hardest
said,
one,
I struggled
think.
with this boss.
The piano
now,
one's
some
also
of this
kind of
is
hard.
just bad luck, getting subpar builds leading up to multiple
At
tries
least
on
the
the
second
boss,
phase. The
but
second
it
phase of
probably also
Nemesis
has
is
to
really
do with
hard.
the fact that I had breezed through the last two and hadn't yet been truly put into the fire. With Nemesis, I was given that trial. Of course, some people will have different experiences and could just struggle with the first, or hell, even all 5 bosses. It really depends on your playstyle.
There were a
and
couple
your
I struggled
course
with.
throughout the
Just a
game
couple.
will change based on how you play it. And
I
the
did
things
most
that
of
you
them
do
in
along
just a
the
couple
way.
tries,
But
though.
the biggest point here is that the struggle is the entire reason to play Returnal. I'm going to make a bold claim here and say that Returnal has some of the most satisfying to beat fights I've seen in a game like this.
I agree.
Of course, we have games like Dark Souls where trial and error really put you through the paces to test your abilities until you're good enough to beat the foe that you've been stacked up against. Returnal isn't exactly like that. It's about 50% of that. But there's so much at stake during a boss. We know that not only is our progress through this entire level on the line, but every ability that we've gained throughout the course of this run, every stat boost, every item, every synergizing piece of our build is at stake. A loss here doesn't just mean that we start back at the beginning of the level, it means we lose our entire build, and we might not get it back.
Sometimes
again.
you
It feels
lose a
terrible to lose
godlike
to a
build,
boss,
man.
especially because we are mere steps away from a checkpoint, in that of a gate or a new biome. But that just means that winning feels all the sweeter. When our build finally clicks, when we are prepared for a fight, when everything just works and we're on our game, beating the boss feels amazing. That was the feeling I got when I finally defeated Nemesis. I probably went up against him 3 or 4 times, dying each time to the last phase of the fight. But once I finally took him down, it was a massive success, a thrill that isn't matched in another part of the game. It's so satisfying to finally get that checkpoint, to know you made more progress moving forward, that this wasn't all for nothing. This is what Returnal does so well. It makes you earn the achievement. It makes you earn progress. It makes you earn the story. It makes you earn satisfaction. It's an incredible feat that the developers have figured out how to distill this emotion, this feeling, into a playable experience, and it just works so well. But what about the Nemesis fight did I really struggle with? Well, the first 2 phases actually aren't difficult at all. We stand on a platform and dodge attacks from either sides of a massive, floating ethereal beast. Of course, it's standard fare, tons and tons of projectiles, waves of lasers, but the boss also moves around, switching the sides from which he attacks us. The last phase is probably the most challenging one, though. We will still be assaulted by waves and clouds of spheres, but the platform is now broken. We have to use the grapple to make our way closer to the boss so that we can damage him. The grapple is actually not a hindrance in this battle, though. It helps us. It gives us the ability to dodge the attacks from all sides and make our way closer to damage at the same time. As I said before, though, when I did finally beat Nemesis, it was an amazing feeling. I finally destroyed the enemy that was plaguing me. Celine wakes up from this strange trance and finds that machine that holds the white shadow signal. She looks inside and sees flashes of imagery, a bridge, herself waking up, hands. She then realizes that the white shadow was a distress signal to Astra. She's getting off this planet. She sits down and resigns herself, finally having completed the cycle. No more retreading old ground, no more dying and living the same thing over again. She gets to go home. We see her ship departing the planet. She's back home, running her fingers through wheat. She's playing the piano, visiting a bridge. Her entire life is lived, and we see her fingers get older over time. But eventually, all good things have to end. Celine lives a long life and finally passes away.
That's
laid
the
to
end of the
rest
game.
by her family.
The game is over.
And then she wakes back up on Asterios. It wasn't linked to the planet. It was linked to her. Even if she dies outside, she will still return. She's stuck in a never-ending cycle, truly hell in physical form. This reveal is so incredibly distressing for Celine to think that she made it out, to be confident that the whole thing was over, that she would never see that planet again, only to be brought back at the end of her life, kills all motivation. We, as the player, are left wondering if there even exists a way that she can escape this torture, this madness that holds her to the planet she finds herself on. Now that we're back, things have changed a little bit. We start in an entirely new biome because time has passed and the world has changed. We don't start in the overgrown ruins anymore, but the echoing ruins. While it is very similar to the first biome we encounter in the game, it has stark differences in enemies and design. We'll encounter aggressive flying beasts that will blast us with all new attacks, huge octopus-like creatures with shields and all new defenses. It should also be noted that our new journeys will start here from this biome. Our crashed ship has also been overgrown, but it's still here, and every time we perish, we'll come back to the echoing ruins. We will have an opportunity later to revisit old biomes, but not quite yet. With this new set of biomes, we also start out at level 15 weapon proficiency, changing our max to 30, giving us more room to get stronger weapons. This is all effectively another checkpoint for us to start our journeys off at. Early on in this biome, we will encounter the house once again. As we walk in, though, we're suddenly seeing from the perspective of a child playing a PlayStation 5 trademark. As the child, we can interact with a walkie, draw a picture of an octopus on the chalkboard, and play with an astronaut doll. Downstairs, we hear the same message from Celine on the answering machine. We can sit down at the table to talk to the astronaut, and the child asks them to hear a story that we choose from a list of options. But as the child looks up, the astronaut is gone, and the child weeps, sick of being alone.
The end. What do you think? It's so cool, right? It is cool.
It is. It's so cool, it's so cool.
Centuries ago. Majesty. Coral Queen.
Yeah, I completely misinterpreted
So
these child
good
sections.
adventures.
I also
As the
thought
child
her
heads upstairs, they try
I thought her kid was her daughter. No, it's her son. And yeah, that's why it tells you Helios abandoned over and over. Because when she got in the car crash, the ship crash, she abandoned her son in the car to swim upward and save herself, allowing the car to sink to the bottom of the water, allowing her son to die, abandoning Helios, abandoning her ship, abandoning the AI in the ship Helios.
to show Octo to the astronaut, and it embraces the child, only to reveal its tentacles. Celine then wakes up outside once again. Here we get a new artifact, the two-way radio, which, when held, gives us increased protection based on how much ether we hold. We will head through the ruins to find that Celine's sanity has been falling apart on the voice memos, and that the astronaut figure has had an impact on the world. Once we manage to reach the end of this level, we're met with a large tower. At the top of this tower is our next boss battle, and the other two pathways lead to the gates of the final two biomes. Hyperion is at the top, a massive being that's playing a huge organ, a sound that Celine just wants to stop. Hyperion specializes in bullet hell. A rainbow of colors will emanate from this beast, casting every attack that we've seen thus far. The projectiles take different shapes and move at different speeds,
God, I
making
love
it
this
difficult to
fight.
dodge if
The
we aren't
music
paying
during this
attention.
fight was
As
so
the phases
good.
move on, the intensity is ramped up, but once we defeat him, the music stops, and we gain a key to the next biome. As we enter the next place, we realize that it's the
So good,
Crimson
so good.
Wastes, but it's covered in snow. It's the same mountaintop, but it's now called the Fractured Wastes. Now, you may be thinking to yourself that reusing two biomes for the end of the game really would feel like recycled content, but it doesn't. The biomes are transformed enough in design and layout that it doesn't even feel like the same place. Also, considering the fact that the room placements are always randomized, we're left with completely different and new places to explore. The Fractured Wastes actually begins with a pretty useful room. It will always start out with an item shop, a reconstructor, in case we die and don't want to end our run yet, and 5 rooms off to the sides. One of these rooms is an optional side room. It's locked, and opening it allows us to access a new augment. At this point, Celine is just covered in alien tech, completely transformed by the upgrades that she's attached to her body. But this one allows us to traverse on the red surfaces in the game, a previously deadly substance that we couldn't even touch. This will allow us access to many more optional points that hold rewards, making us even stronger in the coming runs. The other 3 rooms in the Fractured Wastes will lead us down long paths that will eventually see us fighting a mini-boss and grabbing a key at the end. Once we have all 3 keys, we can head into the main door. Once past the main door, we get another upgrade, which allows us to delve into the water. This is another thing that we've seen throughout the course of the game, caches of rewards stuck underneath the surface of water that would kill us if we touched it. Now we can delve inside and take the treasure for ourselves, but it also lets us access the final biome, the Abyssal Scar. This entire biome is underwater. We can of course still fall too far into the depths and take damage from this, but our weight is now less, so we can jump much higher. This again changes combat, giving us more mobility and making the game more fresh near the end of its runtime. Down here, we will of course encounter even more tentacle creatures, the most annoying of which are the octopus-like beings that will dash at us if we don't kill them before they charge. They have a very small amount of health, but there's just an absolute flood of them, so it can be quite difficult to battle the torrent. Through this scar, we'll get our final augment of the game. This lets us see strange and previously hidden balls of light. We can shoot these and reveal platforms to areas that were inaccessible to us until now. With that unlocked, we can reach the final boss of Returnal, Ophion. Ophion is a huge skeletal-like beast laying at the bottom of this vast ocean. He's actually pretty easy because most of the projectiles he fires are pretty slow. We really just have to avoid the massive walls that rush towards us and use a basic strategy to defeat him. The only thing that's tricky is we have to shoot the balls of light around him to reveal his weak spots, the eyes on his body. Once we kill him, we jump down a final pit. We find another voice log from Celine, who says she remembers everything now. She knows why she's supposed to be here. Before we talk about that, we should talk about the final house sequence of the game. We play Celine once again, who is confident that someone else is in the house with her. We find another book that rambles on and on, repeating the same sentences about old gods and goddesses. Celine turns on a record player that plays The Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult, a song that will become all too poignant as we get further into this tale. She sees the astronaut, who she tells she won't let leave again. We're once again playing the child, whose Octo has gone missing. They play with some blocks, still terrified that their friend is gone. The child plays with a latch, sees drag marks on the floor, and finally finds Octo in the dining room. The child says the monster is waking up and heads to the TV to hide from it. The TV sucks the child in, and it sees the astronaut approach from the outside. The child then looks at the telescope, and we wake up as Celine once again, seeing the ship fall from the sky. She says that she destroyed Helios. She started everything. This is one massive loop. Once we defeat Ophion, we find a car sitting at the bottom of the scar with its headlights on. Celine finds a massive sphere with a strange being inside. It shows her something. We see the familiar trees that we've seen all too many times before when waking up from death and when laying in bed. This time, though, we see a road just past it. Celine is driving down the street, and her daughter is in the back seat. She asks Celine if she sees the white shadow, but Celine only readjusts her mirror. As she tries to change the station from Blue Oyster Cult, she sees an astronaut in the road and swerves, crashing into the water below the bridge. Celine gets out of the car and tries to get back to her daughter, but is pulled away by the tentacles. We see one last shot of the astronaut, and Celine wakes back up on Helios. Celine realizes that she is destruction. The game makes sure at this point to tell us that the story is not yet over. That's because it isn't. There's still a little left to be found in Returnal's depth. You remember the car that we saw at the end of the game? Well, we need to get the keys for that thing. This will leave us with the final piece of the tale and the secret ending for Returnal. Once we beat the game and have seen all of the house sequences, we're told that we need to light the way forward. This tells us that we need to collect 6 sunface fragments that have been hidden throughout the 6 biomes that are present in the game. These are placed in many different spots, and to find them all, we will need to use every augment and skill that we've gained thus far. Eventually, when we find all of them, Celine enters the house, and this time she says, "Mother, I'm home." Celine finds the latch, the buckle that the child was playing with before, but she unlatched it. She finds another cube that is destroyed. She walks down the stairs to the basement and finds a wheelchair. She sits in said wheelchair and wonders why her mother seemed so frightening before. The two of them were broken. She then sits on a throne in the ruins, overlooking the dilapidated house, and she now has the car keys. We then have to defeat Ophion once more to get the car. This time, Celine opens the door to the vehicle and she's transported to a strange space. She sees a skeletal woman in a wheelchair who immediately attacks her. The woman falls down and Celine sees the sky. Looking down at her hands, she's in a suit, an astronaut suit. The car on the bridge sees her and swerves, creating a full loop that caused the events in the first place. We then see Celine swimming out of the water, barely making it out alive, as she breathes the word Helios. Now, before we dissect all of this and analyze it to find out the true meaning of the story, I just want to quickly talk about Returnal as a game and as a story. First and foremost, the story of the game is very vague, and I say that in the nicest way possible. The game presents us with just enough details to keep us interested. We don't exactly need to know what's going on 100% of the time for the narrative to still hit. We get the emotion, we get the feeling, and that's the important part. We see the themes and we understand them at a glance. It's clear without even diving deep into it that this is a story about loss, trauma, grief, and punishment. It reminds me in a lot of ways of Silent Hill 2. This place almost feels like a hell of our own making, a personal punishment designed for oneself. Now, obviously, there are definitive, deeper meanings here, hidden underneath. But we can beat the entirety of the game without knowing for sure what has happened, without answering our own questions. This, of course, leaves the game up for quite a lot of interpretation. There are many ways to interpret the game and its story and what it might mean. But for now, let's at least talk about what I took from it. So what really happened in Returnal? Again, I just want to start this off by saying that this game's story is highly interpretive. You can read it in many different ways, and the story was made vague enough to invite that kind of thing. It wants you to read into it. It wants you to dissect its narrative and take what you want from it. What you find in the story and identify with or like the most is what you get out of it. You get what resonates with you. To that end, this is just my reading of the narrative, and that does not make it the definitive one. What I took from the game is that Celine had a daughter named Helios. This is something that we could have spied earlier in one of the house sequences if we paid close enough attention. During one late night while driving home, Celine was distracted, possibly from being rejected from a space program led by Astra. She felt a loss and a longing for this career, and she didn't get it. Because of this, she wasn't fully there. When trying to adjust the radio, she ran off the road, and the two plunged into the water. Celine was able to save herself, but was not able to save her daughter. Because of the death of Helios, Celine felt immense guilt and hatred for herself. This leads us to the events that actually happen in Returnal. The game is all a reflection of the punishment that Celine is putting herself through. This is a simulation of grief, of trauma, of dealing with issues. Celine tortures herself with beasts that try to attack her. She punishes herself with the torment of reliving this hell over and over again. But it's not only that. This is a manifestation of her grief. It's no coincidence that Celine crash lands on the planet aboard a ship named Helios, the same name as her daughter. This crash is an exact representation of the car crash that night that changed her life forever. Also, whenever we leave the crash site, we see a big piece of text that says Helios abandoned, signifying the hatred and loaded language that Celine uses to punish herself. She feels like she crashed and then abandoned her daughter in the water that night. So, if this whole thing is a torment machine, then what does the rest of it mean? Well, eventually Celine gets off Atropos. She goes and lives her entire life and is buried by her family, only to end up back on the planet once again. This is a symbol meant to stand for the fact that Celine can always run away from her grief. In this first ending, she doesn't face her grief head on. She leaves. She gets a way out and runs. This helps for a time, and she's seemingly allowed to dump it in the past, but until she faces her troubles and deals with them, she'll never be able to fully get away from it. When she comes back to the planet, she is forced to face the grief that she endured. She is forced to remember, and forced to destroy those memories to leave them in the past. The astronaut standing on the bridge signifies that Celine herself was the one that caused that crash. This is at least how she feels about it. But in the end, Celine gets out of the water. She's no longer pulled down by the tendrils. She allows herself to be free. Now, there are other things in here too, and Returnal is a very thematic game. Celine's relationship with her mother is very troubled. From audio logs and memos, it seems like they didn't have the greatest time together. This is especially signified during the ending scene when she talks about her mother being this terrifying monster that she could never get past. It's possible that Celine feels like she became her mother. She became the terrifying monster that ruined or ended her own child's life. It's also worth noting that the game's health meter is actually called integrity. I believe this was a conscious choice relating to the fact that having integrity with oneself will make it easier to face their own fears and grief in the end. But Returnal also has a lot of Greek symbolism. This is pretty clear to anyone that knows really anything about the mythology. Names like Helios, Theia, Hyperion are all pretty familiar. Each of the bosses themselves are named after Greek figures. Frike, the first boss that we face, is the Spirit of Horror. Her name means tremor or shivering. The being was listed as the personification of horror in Seneca's play Oedipus. Though this was a Roman tragedy and not a Greek piece of fiction, the term itself was used commonly throughout many different tragedies. This could just be the blanket reference to the very first feeling that Celine had towards the incident. She felt great horror, shock, and fear after what happened. Ixion in Greek mythology was the king of the Lapiths. He went on to marry Dia and did not pay the bride price which was customary. For this, his father-in-law stole some of Ixion's horses. Ixion then went on to kill his father-in-law. Kinslaying was a great crime, and he was banished and shunned. He eventually went on to cross even Zeus and was bound to a winged, spinning, fiery wheel. This could be a representation of the punishment that Celine felt that she faced for the death of her child, or even the punishment she racked upon herself. It's also worth noting that Ixion was a kinslayer, not unlike Celine herself. Nemesis, the third boss that we face in the game, is named after the Greek goddess of the same name. She is a winged woman holding either a whip or a dagger. Nemesis is another representation of punishment. She personifies retribution for specifically hubris. The name, while originally meaning something different, was eventually connected with feeling just resentment. Celine resents herself. She feels that she is deserving of retribution. She wants justice to be enacted upon her, and this boss does that. Hyperion is the fifth boss that we fight in the game. Hyperion was one of the Titans, specifically fathered by Gaia and Uranus. Titan happened to be the father of Helios and Selene. The woman that he had these children with was Theia. Now, it's no coincidence that Theia is the name of Selene's mother in the game. Clearly, Hyperion is meant to represent Selene's father. She has quite a lot of resentment for her father as well, and the game suggests that they stopped speaking. It's also worth noting that the song that Hyperion plays on the organ during the battle is The Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult, the same song that was playing during the crash. This makes a lot more sense in context and why Celine wanted the song to stop playing. Ophion, the final boss that we fight in Returnal, is based on a Titan god of the same name, or at least, I think. There's not a lot to connect this one in the game. Ophion was originally an elder god who ruled Earth. He was eventually overthrown by Cronus and cast down to Tartarus. Now, the only thing that I could really pull from this is that Ophion is here because he is sometimes represented as a serpent in mythology. The boss has some serpent-like qualities, and it's no coincidence that a lot of the enemies in the game bear tentacles. When the crash happened, Helios was carrying Octo in her lap. This could be a representation of just memory, and the fact that the last thing that Celine has to overcome before she moves past this is the memory of that night. It's worth noting that this battle happens underwater as well, the place where her daughter died. There are a ton of other Greek references in the game, like Atropos, the name of the planet that the game takes place on, being the one who cuts the threads of life. This means that this planet is not only a representation of life or death, but of fate itself. Now, there's also a lot of discussion that directly contradicts the statements that I just made and the theories that I just presented, but I would love to hear everyone's view on this story because all of the interpretations are great. I'm definitely not here to say that anyone is wrong and that I'm right. I think that all theories out there are valid. Another large theory is that the car crash on the bridge was actually Theia and Celine, that the car crash happened when Celine was a child. Theia was paralyzed from the car crash and Celine survived. Thea then had a turbulent relationship with Celine because she felt that Celine got to have a life and that she didn't. This was also worsened by the fact that Celine went on to pursue a career in being an astronaut, which was Thea's dream in the first place. There are also theories out there that Celine is a murderer. This all furthers my point that this game is very interpretive. The developers meant for it to be that way. There's a reason they haven't come out and said specifically what it means. This is because they want you to decide for yourself, and that's what's so beautiful about the whole thing. I'm calling this section DLC, but there technically wasn't ever a paid DLC released.
Yeah, it was like a free update.
Most of the new releases and expansions for the game came from
Sorry,
free
didn't
updates.
talk during,
I'll only talk
any
about
of
this part briefly because there really isn't a ton to cover here, though there is some new information to talk about. The Ascension update adds both the Tower of Sisyphus and co-op to the game. The developers had originally intended for the game to be a solo experience, but after release, fans really wanted a way to be able to play with other people. Because of the demand, Housemarque added in a co-op mode. Here we can join together with another player, another version of Celine, and have some assistance in the battles to come. The larger point of this update, though, is the Tower of Sisyphus. This is a massive tower accessed by entering a door off to the side of the crash site. Here we can begin making our way up this massive tower, entering new rooms and defeating the enemies inside. We are given a score and a multiplier as a way to track our best runs. There is one new boss that's faced at the end of each phase of the tower. This boss is called Algos. The first time we face him, he will only have one phase, then 2 phases the second time, and finally 3 phases the final time. Algos can be pretty challenging as he sends waves of fast projectiles out at us that can be really hard to dodge. We can damage him by attacking his eye though. The biggest difference with the tower from the rest of the game is that we get a lot of items. If we clear rooms faster, we'll get extra obolites. We can obviously then use these to buy a ton of upgrades. This means that we do a lot more damage and have a lot more health. But we also take a lot more damage. Because of this, we have to be able to survive through the onslaught and make it all the way. The interesting part about the tower, though, is that we gain access to a hospital bed pretty early on. Here we can explore the hallway and find a book with a poem about Sisyphus that eventually changes into being about Celine. The book also contains a prayer about someone cutting a thread. We can unlock more of these hospital sequences by finding
there's actually like story and stuff in the DLC?
Once we find all of them, we can return to the hospital bed to find more information about Thea. Now, some of the information in the hospital contradicts each other. Some of it says that Thea was the one driving the car that night and she made it out, only to suffer terrible injuries that ended her career. Other information says that Thea died that night in the car wreck. There is a ton that we could do with this information. Of course, we could be led to believe that Celine never wrecked her car, that Celine was the child in the accident that night. Possibly Celine was in another wreck with Helios later in her life. It's possible that Thea somehow managed, maybe through the real power of Atropos, to trade her own life for her child's, changing history in the process. It should also be noted, though incredibly obvious, that the tower, named after Sisyphus, is a huge theme for the entire game. If you're not already aware, Sisyphus is a character in Greek myth. He was the king of Ephyra and happened to cheat death twice during his life. Because of this, he was sentenced to eternal punishment. Sisyphus was a character of hubris, thinking himself above the gods, having gotten away from their fate for him. Because of this, he was forced to roll a massive boulder up a steep hill, only for it to fall back down again, restarting the activity. Clearly, this is a very cruel punishment. The effort itself is futile and degrading. No one wants to do work just to have to do it again, and this is effectively work without any sort of meaning or purpose. Sisyphus has a massive presence throughout literature and art. Most interpret the myth as a reflection of life, some taking a more nihilistic point of view that our presence is futile, just the same pointless routine over and over. Others take this with a more positive theme, showing that the meaning of the work isn't the point, but the action of itself. Regardless, this reflects Celine's character. She was doomed to repeat the same cycle over and over again with no way out. The tower is much the same. She only learns more as she goes on, but cannot seem to leave the hill that she climbs again and again. It's also worth noting that Algos, the boss that we fight in the tower, was a lesser daemon in the history. He was meant to be the personification of pain, physical and mental. There was not just one, but many representing different parts of this vast emotion: wars, lies, anarchy, ruin, and many more. The DLC itself is very good. It adds a substantial amount of content to the game. It's a fantastic addition to the story, introducing both new thematic discussion, but also new lore information. It also extends the combat and keeps the systems rolling, giving us more to earn from the experience. Returnal is something really great. It combines so many elements to create the piece that we get in the end. The combat is fast-paced, action-focused, and incredibly satisfying. The controls are very responsive. They feel great in your hands. You feel not only the weight of your shots, but the weight of the enemy's attacks. You feel light when jumping through the air, but the intensity of the combat is the true art of Returnal. For a while, it can feel like you're fumbling around, like you aren't good enough to reach an end here. But after that stage, you enter into the zone. You just feel all the systems click. You know why you're doing what you're doing. Your build is working. Everything synergizing is great. When you finally overcome that mountain that plagued you for so long, it feels amazing. You got past it. You made your way through. You got good enough and made the right choices. And here you are, with something to show for it. Pushing the boulder up the hill finally paid off. The work had meaning. It had permanence. The design of Returnal is also fantastic. Each zone and biome feel distinct. They are wholly their own. They feel unique and set apart from the rest. The foreign worlds feel like something we've seen before, but just different enough that we don't know where we are. We almost feel lost, and part of getting better at the game means feeling like we have our bearings in the strange place. The colors used are magnetic, beautiful pieces that can make a place feel grand, open, and desolate, while others make a place feel small, closed off, and surrounded. All of these elements work together to form something great, but that's only helped by the sound design and the music. The sounds of Returnal always feel alien to some extent, but they're done so well that it adds to the impact of combat and the weight of moving around. The music adds an intensity to the combat encounters, but adds a lightness and wonder to the moments that don't see us mowing down alien hordes. The story, of course, is probably my favorite part, though. Its vagueness and ambiguity make it something worth poring over. You want to learn details. You want to learn the exact points of its history. You want to answer your own
how
questions.
Did you feel about
Why
Returnal?
and
It was
how.
awesome.
But you can't always be sure or get those answers for certain. But that's what makes it.
Intergenerational trauma is a cycle. I like the conflicting info on who was driving and who was the child and who died is purposeful. The roles are meant to be interchangeable with part of this. Celine's trauma being the way she enacted the same cruelties on her own child that were enacted on her. Trying to leave the planet represents her attempts to end the cycle and be a better parent. Her returning represents being sucked back into those toxic behaviors over and over again. Her fear is that leading to the destruction of her child and the endless abandonment of Helios. Whether she's the driver or the passenger doesn't matter. In the cycle, they are one and the same. I'm gonna goob. I'm goobing it right now. Hi, Aurum. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. I just finished watching some Returnal videos. Hello, hello. I'm goobing everywhere. I'm goobing it. I'm goobing it. I'm goobing it. I'm goobing it. Do 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 do. Anyways. Wow, wow, wow. Simultaneously, I feel like I learned a lot from those videos, but also nothing. Because the game is just so mysterious that, like, a lot of those videos were just, like, them interpreting it in their own way. And for the most part, it lined up with what I thought. So, like, bah. Bah. How are you? I'm sick. My throat hurts a lot. I haven't really been talking much this stream because of it. Meow, 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 meow. Ba, 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 ba. Also, while I was watching that, I made thumbnail for this thing. Now that's up. Happy face. Happy face. The lore of Returnal, and it's 2 hours long. Warning, Helios abandoned. Yeah, the Helios shit I completely misinterpreted because I guess there were multiple car crashes. And like the car crash might not even be like an actual thing, but like the amount of shit that's like there's one interpretation that's like the second car crash isn't even like a real car crash, but just like an illustration of her passing the same sort of generational trauma her own mother passed onto her son Helios. And then the reason that the game alerts you every time you leave the crashed ship, the ship being named Helios, at the beginning of every run, it alerts you Helios abandoned is because she literally did abandon her child. And she's passing on like the same type of neglect and torment onto her child that her mother did to her. Bah, 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 bah. I don't know. Shit's trippy. Both of the videos I just watched had very different interpretations. I kind of liked Jacob Geller's more just because, like, I don't know. I feel like it was closer to mine, other than the fact that, like, during the kids sections, I thought, I don't know, the kids sections were confusing to me because there were some of them where it felt like, okay, yeah, this is her kid. But then there were some of them where it's like, wait, no, this is her. Wait, no, it's not. So I just got confused because it's like, is this her or her kid? And I don't know. I don't know. I got other shit open as well. The Joe video I might save for another day for while I'm eating. What is this though? Watch this. Where'd that other video just go? What the? I dragged a tab over and then it disappeared. There it is. And there's also this, but this is like 50 minutes. I don't know. I brought open other shit, but meh. I don't know how much of it I want to watch or if any of it. I will say, I don't know how early you gotta be up, so I don't know how late you'd be willing to stay up, but if you want to, we could watch maybe like an episode or two of Vinland Saga tonight if you want to. It's up to you though. I don't really got anything to do. Nod. Okay. I'll let you eat though. I'll let you eat. Take your time. Why do I have so many tabs open? Close some of these. I'll watch this.
Hardware tip 1. Pressing the power button should feel identical to patting the top of your horse's head.
What?
Good girl.
Wow.
Well, I've got good news for acquisition fans this week, as Sony picked up Cinemersive Labs, a UK...
I'm so glad they're doing this after shutting down Bluepoint.
based machine learning and computer vision company. Now you might think,
A machine learning company. I'm so glad they bought that company after shutting down Bluepoint. A machine learning company.
such an acquisition is boring and most likely inconsequential. You might even ask, why? Well, at Sony Interactive Entertainment, the company behind the PlayStation brand, by the way, I didn't realize until this week that for some reason Sony Interactive Entertainment always refers to themselves as the company behind PlayStation. If it's going to be like that every time, just call yourselves PlayStation. Anyway, the company behind the PlayStation brand is continually exploring new ways to push the boundaries of visual computing and delivering richer, more immersive gameplay experiences. And I could swear I had read a sentence just like that. Just last week when Sony had to explain the significant price increase of PlayStation hardware. And to be fair, they started raw. They said, with continued pressures in the global economic landscape, we've made the decision to increase the prices of PS5, PS5 Pro, and PlayStation
The PS5 Pro is $900 now.
Portal Remote Player globally. It's weird. That was big
Motherfucker, the PS6 is going to be like $1,200.
news and not big news at the same time. When the PlayStation 4 Pro launched less than 2 years ago, less than a year and a half ago, it was $700 US. Now they've chosen to make that a $900 US console. And usually that number would be absurd. That would sound bonkers, but we live in bonkers times. $900 is like 1 week of eating footlongs.
And they're gonna sell. Wanna know why they're gonna sell? The biggest game release of all time happens later this year. GTA 6. And it's not launching on PC. So people are gonna want the best console to run the biggest game release of all time. People are gonna buy that $900 console just for GTA 6. Buh. Buh.
Subway. But that wasn't the only reason they gave for raising prices. They said, we found this was a necessary step to ensure we can continue delivering innovative, high-quality gaming experiences to players.
Because there's a lot of people, you know, those ball and gun gamers who only buy GTA, sports games, Call of Duty. GTA 6 might be the only game they buy this year. They're going to see it as a worthwhile investment because they're not buying a ton of games. They want their one game that they play to look the best it can.
Worldwide. So the top of the whiteboard at SIE said deliver.
They've been waiting for that shit since they were
experiences.
literally 10 years old.
And their two best ideas were raise prices and acquire ambiguously AI graphics company. It's
Right.
also humorous, of course, that Sony would make such claims considering they just shut down another game studio last week, Dark
Yep.
Outlaw Games. But to talk about
Yep.
Dark Outlaw Games, I think we should cover a bit of history. So let's go back to Summer Game Fest 2021, where the world was first introduced to Deviation Games. Now, I do think it should be noted that just like many of today's kindergartners, Summer Game Fest was birthed during the COVID era. It wasn't one of these big live audience spectacles you'd expect today. No, it started humbly in Jeff Keighley's home office. In those first years, you would be lucky to have a pre-recorded message from Alf.
Can I get some F's in chat
What
for
the fuck?
Kaylee's career?
It's Keeley, not Kaylee, Alf. But thanks.
This stuff's actually pretty crazy to go
Kaylee's
back
career.
to. They got Weezer there to perform like a live music video, just promoting a game where animals skate on boats.
Don't be influenced by an office full of dorks.
Anyway, what I'm saying is if you wanted to come on stage and announce your studio and then not say a single thing about the game you're making, 2021 Summer Game Fest wasn't going to say no. So here's Dave Anthony and Jason Blundell, formerly Treyarch, announcing their new studio, Deviation Games. And there's a few things about this bit that I would say are sad today, in hindsight. Firstly, it's how they're establishing their relationship.
Jason and I, we've been mates for donkey's years. And well, like all married
Donkey's
couples, yeah.
years?
And we've been working together for decades.
You could even see in the promo materials that would
Donkey's
come out that
years.
they're really excited to have these two former Call of Duty leads, best buddies, working together at a new studio. And then another thing they wanted to stress at the very start is how excited they are to have complete financial freedom.
From day one, we got complete financial security to work with creative freedom and time, not just to make a brand new IP, which is what we're doing, but a groundbreaking new IP with innovation at its very core.
What's the
At the
IP?
time, Dave Anthony would say things like this to game industry. From day one of the studio, we have complete financial security for years and years to come. So I watched this crazy video on the Deviation Games YouTube channel. It's their 2021 James Bond themed holiday party. It's pretty swanky. They've even got the Deviation Games logo on cigars and poker chips. They were, at this moment, visibly not concerned about money. Merry Christmas! It was just less than a year after that party in 2022. The old married couple got divorced. Jason Blundell left Deviation Games while Dave Anthony remained CEO. And then in 2024, just 2 years after that, it was announced on LinkedIn that the studio was shutting down. And right up until that very end, we never saw a second of their video game, even though we did see the Deviation Games cruise night. Though, if you're looking for some unofficial stuff, just late last year, established Resident Evil plot leaker Dusk Golem did indeed publish some footage of the game. I'll say this. It's early. It's rough. It's rough. Nothing looks good. No video game has ever looked good at this phase of development.
Wonder what happened here.
Don't stick around to find out.
You mean to tell me you were walking around Griffith Observatory saying stuff like this?
Everything's getting a bit stale at the moment. It's all getting a bit dry. You know, when we set Deviation up, it was a very specific goal to deviate away from the humdrum, from the normal, from the boring, from the things that we've seen 1,000 times.
And the game, it turns out, was, you know, shooting splashy bugs with machine guns. To be fair, it looks like sometimes you'd also
I've never
have to
seen this
shoot
before.
generators. And then in 2025, 1 year after the closure of Deviation, Jason Blundell's on a podcast, The Jeff Gerstmann Show, to confirm he's got a new studio called Dark Outlaw Games, and they're fully owned.
Why can he keep making
I don't know if I made that
studios?
clear earlier before. Deviation was their own studio, and Sony was going to.
How does he keep making more studios? Where is he getting this money?
Publish their game, this new one, Dark.
What is his job? What is his employment status other than making studios over and
Outlaws,
over?
owned by Sony. And anyway, I like that in this interview itself, Jason Blundell seems to kind of acknowledge that this time he's not going to do a whole hullabaloo about the studio announcement.
When we've got something to talk about, we'll step out into the light. But, you know, the story for me is going to be about the game, not about the studio. So the reason why we're not doing a fanfare or shouting about it from the rooftops is like, let's get something, right?
Right.
But yeah, Dark Outlaw Games.
And that was it. That was
What kind
the
of
entire
crimes is he
announcement.
partaking
there was
in?
Never a welcome to the family blog.
Where is
post
he
for
getting
Dark
this money?
Outlaw Games. And in fact, up until
You don't just open a studio and hire a bunch of people and get bought by Sony out of fucking nowhere. Where are you getting this fucking money, dude?
last
What
week,
is your
the only
employment?
official acknowledgement Sony ever made of this studio existing under their umbrella was this one website. As of the time of recording, it's still up, just hanging out here mysteriously. There's no pictures, there's no words, just a logo. And so now, back to the present. 1 year after that studio announcement, Dark Outlaw Games is closed. PC Gamer managed to grab an official statement about it. Sony Interactive Entertainment Studio Business
What in the
Group
money
has
laundering
made
is
several
going on here?
strategic adjustments to support
What in the
long-term
money laundering is
sustainability.
going
That's all
on?
that needed to be said, apparently. And for the record, Jason Blundell publicly does not seem to be too bitter about Sony shuttering that studio. And as a
Well, just
matter
make
of
another
fact,
one.
Has already announced his next studio.
Are
Going
we?
even more
Are
low
we
key,
fucking
just on a
serious?
Twitch stream now.
Are we fucking
It exists.
serious?
Magic Fractal?
Are we fucking serious? This is his third studio. How does he keep doing it? Where's the money coming from?
New game studio?
Sure is.
And I guess what really threw me, watching that original Deviation Games announcement from 2021, was this part.
This has to be money laundering, man. It has
very
to be.
Simple. I mean, God, just look at the track record of consistency, of high-quality games that they do. It's hit after hit. It's award after award. And now we've been part of this process and we see how they do things. Yeah. It's really clear how they're managing to accomplish that. So we couldn't be more proud to expand PlayStation's portfolio.
How do I launder my money? At Grok.
I mean, let's just face it, right? Sony rocks, and they get our kind of brand of crazy, so we're very happy with this partnership.
Apparently you just keep making studios and never actually make games, I guess. Get investors to give you all their money, shut the studio down, repeat, rinse, repeat.
Times change. Just
keep
today,
doing
I
that.
don't think any developer would say out loud, let's face it, Sony rocks. Because yeah, I mean, and then maybe a little turnaround slowly. Saros is coming out in a few weeks. Wolverine eventually. But I can't imagine anyone going out of their way to say Sony rocks anytime soon. Probably not till Fair Games comes out. And that's delayed.
Until they do Bloodborne 2 and a
Until
Bloodborne
then,
remake.
Thanks for watching.
Sony sucks. Then I'll say Sony rocks once they give me everything Bloodborne related that I've ever wanted. Once they give me a new Infamous game, a new Bloodborne game, a new Sly Cooper game, a new Ratchet and Clank game, a new Jak and Daxter game, free foot jobs. I don't know what else, man. I don't know what else can make me happy after that. Please, Sony, please. I have no idea when she comes out. What was the day? Season 5 is upon us. Yeah, but like when? April 9th. April 9th she comes out along with like all the new shit in Guilty Gear Strive 2.0. I love that her feet are out. Wow. Wow. I need to remind myself what days I have off next week. I think it's Monday, Friday. Yeah, Monday, Friday. Monday, Friday. Finland time? Maybe, maybe. Yes, in fact. Let me go end stream. Because I can't stream that. I wish. I wish copyright laws didn't exist. I could just fucking stream myself watching anime. That'd be sick. Monday, Wednesday again for me. Cool, we both have Monday off. WWW. Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow. Oh, la, 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 la. Let me close some stuff and get it ready for VR. Yeah, I'll go put my headset on and I guess just wait until you come online. Because I can't stream that, so no stream. Monday and Tuesday. Yippee! Let me see what's the week after the next week. Me, meow. Let me see. If they've posted it. Sometimes they post it late and I get angry. Schedule. Frickin' stop it. The week after that is the 16th and 17th. Thursday, Friday. What the frick? What the frick? What the shit? What the shitty? I also need to... I work that Saturday, and I can't work that Saturday. I need to tell them I can't work that Saturday. I have that Friday off. Oh. Awesome. Awesome. Oh, joyous day. Anyways, I'm gonna freaking nut. It's so true. It's so true. I don't know how much Vinland you'll want to watch tonight, but you know, I'm down for watching as much as you want to watch. We could also, like, you know, watch a couple episodes and switch to something else if you want to watch something else. All of it? That's too much. You gotta be up early. There's physically not enough hours in the day to watch all of it. All of it ever. It's not possible. It's not possible. It's not possible. It can't be done. Anyways, let me close everything. I'm closing everything. I'll probably have to reopen it later, maybe, if I decide to turn stream back on before I sleep. I might also just be too lazy to get up from my bed, though, so we'll see. But in terms of stream and the VOD, this is a weird VOD. I was just sitting here watching shit. No game. No game. What the fuck? No game VOD. Weird. But yeah. See you soon. See you soon. In terms of VOD, I'll be back. Actually, I don't know if I'll be back tomorrow, because I'm leaving town for Easter. I'll be back late tonight tomorrow. So I don't know if I'll play anything because it'll be late. But beep boop bop beep. See your ass soon. But yeah. Meow meow meow. Goodbye. Until then.